please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share if you can, drop your comments down below. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the audio-only platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review if you can. All of that kind of stuff helps with the algorithms. Obviously, we're trying to grow the pod. So yeah, any kind of engagement is greatly appreciated. All right, let's move away from Arsenal and let's get into, I joke around about this, and we obviously newspapers sell a lot of their columns and everything like that, and online sell their subscriptions based on Man United. But this week we really have been the bloody talk of the town. Obviously sacking Ten Hag, hiring or getting Amorim in to join during the international break. We've had a bunch of games. Obviously, Rude interim, winning against Leicester 5-2 in the week, and then Man United versus Chelsea, a Super Sunday, 1-1. It ended. I have to say the quality was absolutely on the floor. There were all these memes going around where you've got 4 or 5 Chelsea and United players just chasing a ball like a dog chases a stick in the park, but without being able to control it whatsoever. And it's just bouncing everywhere and looping over people. And oh my God, the quality was absolutely poor. But Chelsea, I think they definitely are and look like a better drilled team. There were periods where they actually got the ball down and passed it and had some clear patterns of play. They just completely bottled it when it came to the last, the finishing action, right, or the last pass or the last decision, and weren't able to kind of create anything massive. Obviously, Madueke has a header that hits a post from a corner. And United also hit the crossbar right at the end when Rashford should really be scoring on the volley, but it was quite a difficult chance. Second half, kind of similar. No team stands out. Chelsea have a bit more of the ball until Casemiro chucks what was kind of like a bit of a Hail Mary long ball over the top to Højlund. Somehow Wes Fofana gets under it, and Højlund tries to go around Sanchez, and he takes him out, and we get a pen. Bruno tucks it away, 1-0, but the lead only lasts for a few minutes until Caicedo, to be fair, was really impressive in this game. I thought he had one of his best games I've seen him for Chelsea. I'm big on the old Lavia hype train, but I think Caicedo was the standout midfielder in this game. He was really good. And he scored an absolute thunderbolt volley in the bottom corner. And ended up petering out to 1-1. We did have a few chances. Bruno skied one where he should be scoring. Garnacho had a handful of chances in this game. I have to be honest. I wanted to throw things at my TV watching the game because he was extremely frustrating in this game. Ends 1-1. I just want to give a quick shout out to Mazraoui because I feel like only one player from the United side deserves any kind of shout outs. He was so crisp, man. From the first minute until the last, he pretty much made the right decision in every instance. Whether to drive with the ball, whether to pass it, whether to just leave it and make an overlapping run or whatever. He was just very, very. He played very, very well, and he was probably the only player on our team. Maybe De Ligt did okay as well. I think there's a few defensive blocks and stuff where he got in the way, and he did what you would hope your centre back would do. But those are probably the only 2 players on the United side that deserve any kind of credit. I think the Chelsea side, like I said, Caicedo was probably their big standout. Cole Palmer went missing. You didn't see too much of him. Ugarte would put up an absolute stinker. It was a tough watch. It was enthralling because of it was like watching a bum fight. Remember when bum fights went around on bloody LimeWire and Kazaa and all that kind of stuff? And it sounds terrible because obviously, it was kind of very much predatory to watch homeless people fight each other. But it felt like just watching 2 poor teams go at it. And I think we drag Chelsea down to our level because they've actually been playing pretty well this season, banter aside. But we brought them back to the depths of their 12th in the league type level in this game, and it ended 1-1. What did you make of the game, Johns? Before we get into any of the touching points, obviously around Van Nistelrooy and Amorim coming in, do you agree with me that it was a pretty low quality match?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It was a pretty low quality match, but I don't mean that in the fact that like it wasn't funny to watch. Like it was quite funny to watch, and it was relatively entertaining. And it kind of reminded me of like a Sunday league game a little bit. You know, and I always say this, right? When you watch two subpar, not subpar teams, but like imperfect teams, it always makes for way better watching than to watch like a, you know, like a Man City Arsenal game last season. It's boring. It's just like two chess players, grandmasters trying to figure each other out. But in this match, it was, again, as you said, it was a bum fight, which is always really funny to watch. So yeah, the quality was poor. I think a lot of misplaced passes, particularly on the Man United side, particularly from Ugarte and Casemiro. Some really risky play from Onana as well. Like there was one pass that he put to Casemiro where I'm not going to blame Casemiro at all for it, but it was just like, why would you play that ball to him, and him of all people in that position? Like I would maybe pass that to Mainu in that position because Mainu's got the silkiness to get out of tough spots, but why on earth would you pass it to Kebab Bossman in that position with an open goal behind you? So yeah, the quality was poor, and I think it was mostly as a result of Man United and just the way that you dragged Chelsea down with them. But I do think that they weren't great either. Cole Palmer went missing again. Apart from that little meg that all the Chelsea fans are passing around Twitter and stuff like that, like they're trying to show that he megged Ugarte, and I'm just thinking like anybody could have gone on that pitch and megged Ugarte in that period of time. It wasn't that difficult to do. But yeah, I think Lavia was decent. Caicedo was decent. But again, on Caicedo, I've seen some madness going around about how, like they're saying, don't ever question the 100 million again. And I'm just like, are you mental? Like one half decent performance against Man United where you didn't even win, and you're trying to tell me that my man has justified 9 figures. Like you lot are truly off your rocker if you think that that's what we're going to be doing. My man needs to put in the best performances of his life 4 years running, and you guys need to win something before he ever gets away with that transfer fee. So Chelsea fans, hold it, stay there. You're not done yet, mate. But yeah, no. Overall, I think it was a funny match to watch, but I think that the quality was pretty poor. And if we're going to talk about the whole advertisement for for the Premier League, I don't think it was proving to any other leagues that we are the best league out there when big teams like Man United and Chelsea are stinking it up so badly.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I think, man, it was really really tough watching. I think there've been games where we've got absolutely slapped, silly, and I've kind of tried to convince myself that you know the other team came up with some really good tactics, or something that we're doing is not good enough, and that we're not as far away as we have been to being a decent team again. But watching that match, weirdly enough, was kind of like the real penny dropping moment where you go, man, we're really bad. Because even with a new manager bounce, even though I know Ruud's just an interim, or even just a bounce that we know who our new manager is going to be with Amorim, you expect there to just be some positivity, right? Or at least some sort of like everyone get up for it. But I think there may have been before the game, but as soon as that whistle blew and the fans saw the football on display, they were like, nah, can't really get behind this. I'm going to have to wait for the new managers to come in and sort these bums out, because we can't be cheering these absolute muppets on, because some of the football was just so bad, and it was a stark reality that we've got a lot of work to do, and bloody hell, Amrim's got a lot of work to do. So yeah, you sent me that Roy Keane clip, and I agree with Roy Keane. 2.5 years ain't going to be enough for whatever he's signing.
Extend that contract now.
Yeah. he's gonna need double that time to just get us anywhere decent. So yeah, it was a really really poor quality match. I agree with you. The entertainment was there, and it was funny, and there were some really engaging moments, but most of the time it was something that ended with a poor pass or low quality, or something that let it down. But yeah, we move. So first of all, what did you make of the Van Nistelrooy this Van Nistelrooy era. 2 games in, 5-2, 1-1. I'm seeing some very different reactions to his performances as manager so far, or interim manager. Some people saying, keep him on the staff. He clearly has, got something about him that Amorim should keep him on there. Some people saying get rid of him because he's basically been doing Ten Hag football for these last 2 games. Where do you stand on that?
I'm not fully against him staying on the staff, because I just think if he's got all of his badges in that, and he's got the history that he's got as being Ruud van Nistelrooy, then I think surely he could be a very good striking coach or attacking coach. But at the same time, I see the idea of why would you try, if you're a new manager trying to come in, and let's say he doesn't fit into the style of play that you want to try and teach your attackers, then I could understand getting rid of him too. But I don't think people need to be focused that much on it, right? What was he going to be able to do in 2 games, with basically a week's notice to try and turn this team around? Ten Hag has been with them for so long now. How could you ever try and reverse the stuff that he's ingrained in that team? I'm sure that there are cases, and I'm sure someone's going to call it out and say, oh, but look at Slot, he managed to change this, or look at Gary O'Neill with Wolves at the beginning, he could immediately kind of show a style of play. Look at these people. Yeah, I get that. But usually even they've got more than a week's notice to try and teach a team how to do what they need to do. And we're talking about Man United, who have got so many inherent, ingrained problems in the way that they do things and the characters that they've got going around there. It's no shock at all that he can't get them to play any better. But I do think you've seen the morale improve. I think the fact that you've seen, Rashford actually running back and trying to help out the defence, the fact that you've seen kind of a generally slightly better morale from Bruno Fernandes. He's usually even stroppier than he was in that game. I think you've seen kind of even Casemiro kind of get re-engaged like that. There was a point in that game where Garnacho was so poor, loses the ball and has bloody Casemiro with his walking stick trying to chase after Neto, whoever it is. And he just ends up bloody jumping and just attacking Neto to try and get him onto the floor. And he's absolutely digging Garnacho back out, which is exactly the character that you need in that team. And I kind of feel like Casemiro wasn't really doing that anymore because he kind of lost interest under Ten Hag, right? And that's the worst thing that you could want from Casemiro, because his character is probably the most valuable part of him, right? His personality is what you want as a winner, as a leader, as whatever else. So I do think that you've seen a morale improve with Ruud van Nistelrooy, but I think that's not enough to get anything really done in the Man United team. You've got systemic problems in the way that you play football. You've got systemic problems in the individual roles of people within that system, right? The way that a lot of your players kind of carry themselves off the ball, the way that they kind of don't necessarily put their all into it. All of these kinds of problems, they're more than just morale problems. So I'm not surprised that Ruud hasn't been able to turn everything around. And at the same time, I would also understand if Ruben Amorim just says, sorry, mate, you're too much of a kind of threat to me being here and it doesn't make any sense. I'm just going to get rid of you now. And maybe when I eventually flop, maybe you can come back and you can be the next manager. Who knows? But I don't think there's a strong case either way to say you have to get rid of him or you have to keep him.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in clean breaks. So if you get rid of Ten Hag, I would get rid of his backroom staff if you're gonna do the transition to a new full-time manager. If you do the interim thing until the end of a season, keep him on, do whatever. I think, yeah, you shouldn't make that decision then. But if you're bringing in Amorim,
a lot of the backroom staff though, that just in this past season.
No, they changed the assistants.
I thought Ineos had got kind of some their own people in that Ten Hag didn't necessarily get a say in.
Nah, so it's a bit muddy because they got 2 new assistants in. Obviously, Mitchell van der Gaag left, but the party line was that he was going to pursue his own managerial career. Benny McCarthy left, and that was just his contract ran out and they didn't renew it. Don't know the backstory to that. And then they brought in Ruud and René Haak, who are both ex-managers in their own right, to be assistants. So there wasn't any other major changes. I think they brought in a set-piece coach as well to help to help Ten Hag as well with set pieces and stuff like that. So I think those are the only major backroom changes. I don't believe there were any other big ones. But my point is anyway, depending on who, or actually, it doesn't even matter. If they were Ten Hag's men or they were Ineos's men, doesn't matter. If you're bringing in a new full-time coach and you want him to be empowered and give him the best chance to win, you let him bring his staff with him. And Amorim has said that that's one of the big stipulations. And I believe that's probably what they're working on now in the background between the time they announced it and obviously between when he starts on the 11th, to work out which one of his backroom staff from Sporting are going to come and join him. I believe he's going to bring his assistant. I think there's a first team coach and maybe the goalie coach that comes. So I don't know how the setup will be. Maybe that leaves some space for Ruud to fit in. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't personally do it. I believe at this point, you just go clean break and you let him bring his own people in and give him the best chance to succeed. I see the value in having someone who knows the club in the setup somewhere, but I just don't believe it should be in the coaching staff. For example, we've got Darren Fletcher in the building. I don't mind him being there. I don't know how heavily involved he is in the coaching. I would hope he's not too heavily involved in the coaching. And he's a director somewhere doing something with recruitment or the youngsters and the youth teams. I'm fine with that, but I think keeping all of this like residual effect of previous managers in the building has caused some of the problems that we've had. I think there was a point where I think Ten Hag had players early on in his reign that were from all of the previous eras, minus David Moyes, I think. So he had Sir Alex Ferguson players, he had Mourinho players, Van Gaal players, then his own players, and it's like you can't win with a team full of a hodgepodge of all these different coaches' players. And I think it's the same with the backroom staff. Just get rid of the people that are there on the coaching side and let Amorim bring his own people in. I'm not saying get rid of the receptionist Kathy or whatever. Don't get rid of the lunch ladies or anything like that. That's all good. But I'm saying on the coaching side, let Amorim bring the people that he needs to surround himself with to give him the best chance to win. And so I'm leaning towards just, even as much as I love Ruud, and I feel bad for him because he's only been at the club for like 3 months, coming back in, and it was supposed to be, it's obviously clear that he loves the club, right? I don't know if you've seen some of his clips and stuff of him chatting. He's clearly very emotional about everything that's going on, and I love that. But I think if they're gonna make the big decision for Amorim, you've got to back him full, and you can't go half-assed with it. You actually have to go for it. So I would get rid of Ruud for that reason and that reason only. Let's get into the midfield then, let's get into what we think the United team will look like under Amorim, because we're not far away now. We've obviously got the international break between his first game. I think it's the 24th of November will be our first game under Amorim. He obviously plays this 3-4-3. We saw it yesterday against City. There are quite a lot of people out there saying that the centre-backs that we have could fit with that style already. We talked about it on here, right? Putting Lissandro out at the left centre-back slot, having Yoro and De Ligt as, in a back three. Even when we were talking about Ten Hag football, we were saying that might be something they should look at doing. So a lot of people also kind of agree and think that we've got the defenders for that formation. The big kicker, or there's two big kickers, is the midfield and the cam positions. So Amorim plays with a midfield pivot, one person who sits and one who's kind of a bit more all action. Do you think we've got the midfielders to play that right now, play that kind of formation? And if so, who do you think he's going to go for? Because obviously we've had Casemiro and Ugarte in the last performance. Do you think he'll stick with that?
I don't know. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't think Casemiro and Ugarte fit any formation you want to play them in. I don't think you could tell me a single formation where, outside of having 5 central midfielders, where the two of them work in any kind of midfield partnership. I can kind of see the idea of why you've got like the cool, calm head of Casemiro with like the technical ability, and then you've got the kind of the all action craziness of Ugarte. But I'll be honest with you, they're playing really like Timu versions of themselves right now, where I don't see attractiveness in either of those players. So I suppose it could be a really poor version of what Amorim's trying to do, and he could probably try and play them there, and he might have like be forced to play them there. But if I was going to do anything, I'd probably try and get somebody else in there. If that has to mean Casemiro swapping out for either Mainu or for Ericsson or somebody else, I think that could work. I think the place where you're really in trouble is Ugarte, mate, because I don't think you've got a like-for-like swap, and I think it's a big reason why everyone was so excited about having Ugarte in the first place, is because he was that all-energy, all-action midfielder that you needed, that you didn't really have. I think we realised that Mainu was not going to be that. We already knew that Casemiro doesn't have the engine for that. We already know that Ericsson hasn't got the engine for that. We already know that, obviously McTominay gone now, so there's no chance he's going to be able to do that. So you've got like maybe Collier could be the person that would be the backup for Ugarte, but I think that's the position where you really need to worry. And unless Amorim can like suddenly get something back out of Ugarte because they've worked together in the past, maybe that's an option. But honestly, I think it could end up being Casemiro and Ugarte in that position, but I don't think it'll be for long. I think Amorim will try and swap out either one or both of those players in the next transfer window. Maybe not January, but probably in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll keep Ugarte just because we've spent a lot of money on him, and I think he'll think of him as
he'll be forced to. I don't think anybody would buy him.
But even beyond that, though, I think he'll look at him and he'll say, "I got you to play good football when I was at Sporting to fit in my system. I'm gonna let the world see that you've had like a 16-month blip. Your one season at PSG and your two months is probably even harsh on him at United. He's only played a handful of games, right? He's mostly been on the bench for most of Ten Hag's reign, but still it hasn't looked good. So I'm sure he will look at him and say, no, I want to keep you anyway. You've worked with me before. You know my style maybe as well. I think that's important to mention as well. Having people that are in the team that already know how you want to play obviously is important and useful. So I think he'll keep him regardless. The jury's still out for me on him as a fan. Like, I've not liked what I've seen whatsoever. But
I think you will need backup in that position in the future anyway. Even if you don't necessarily get rid of Ugarte, I think you will either need to get another midfielder somewhere in that mould, or even an upgrade on him, depending on how it goes with Amorim, right? Like, I think long term, you're going to need somebody else anyway to be kind of a backup to that position, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, so chatting with other United fans, they seem to think it'll be Mainu and Ugarte in midfield when Mainu's back, obviously, from injury. I'm not so sure where Mainu fits in this, because I could see that, but I could also see him in one of the 10 positions, just because I don't think he's got the engine to do the running up and down, up and down, up and down that one of the midfielders will need to do in an Amorim system. So he's kind of relegated to either the holding six in the Amorim double pivot, or he's going to have to be a 10 because I think that's physically what he's best suited to. So either way, you're going to need to get midfielders in, because, like you said, we've counted Christian Eriksen definitely can't play the midfield role in a double pivot for Amorim. So he's probably only looking at the 10 role. And then, who else you got? Casemiro, Ugarte, Mainu, Collier, like you said. Like, I feel like we're going to have to rely on like someone springing out from the youth, or a couple signings in midfield for us to fit the system Amorim's looking for regardless. And then that 10 position is really tricky, because we've already got Bruno. The 2 10s that he plays with is really tricky, because we've got Bruno, Mount, and Ericsson already that we talked about, who can pretty much only play that role. And then you're also talking about all the wingers that we've got that Amorim doesn't really play with. I think the wing is the bigger problem.
In my opinion, the wingers, because you've got like Mount as well, who theoretically could play in the 10 as well. I feel like you've got quite a lot of options for that 10. I think the big problem is, where are you going to put all of your wingers? Because you've got Ahmad, Garnacho, Rashford. You've got a lot of like, I would say one of your strongest positions are your wingers. And now you're going to have to somehow fit them into like a wing back kind of Pedro Porro-y type of role, or you're going to have to stick him up front, or they're going to have to transfer into a 10. I think maybe Ahmad could do that. I think Ahmad could play probably in one of the 10 positions.
Yeah, Ahmad could
I
do the 10.
don't know if Garnacho or Rashford could. I don't know if they're really good enough in terms of holding up the ball, controlling the ball, getting it down and passing it. I think they're probably best suited to be either the wing back role or the striker role, but I don't see how either of those players are going to want to play wing back. And I don't think Rashford likes to play striker. So those are the ones where I'm more concerned. What do you think is going to end up happening to Rashford, Garnacho, Ahmad, Antony as well? Another one.
I think Antony, Ahmad will be used as 10s if they're used at all. I think Garnacho's going to go and play one of the wing back roles. He'll probably be upset about it, but that's what he's going to do. You look at that guy Quenda yesterday. I don't think it's a negative position. And actually, it's not quite as deep. It's not really a wing back. It's actually like an actual winger, not like a
right midfielder, like an old school
Yeah.
David Beckham kind of thing.
Yeah, like a right midfielder and left midfielder. And I feel like you can get a lot of joy. You saw that Quenda yesterday. He looked class, mate. I know he's like 17 or something, but he looked absolutely class. And he was pegging it up and down that wing the whole time. A lot of attacking opportunities set up, or I think one of the Gyökeres goals. And he was a nuisance for City all game. So I think Garnacho suits that position probably the best of the ones available for him. I think he'd be really good at that, actually, to be honest. But I think he'll be miffed about it because I think it's very clear Garnacho's got he's created like an ego and attitude about himself, which which stinks and I don't like at all. So it's going to be a humbler for him to go back into that role because I think he's going to look at it as like he's moving further away from the goal and not be too happy about it. But I think it's the best position for him. The Rashford one is a sticky one because you're right. I only see the striker role being anything close to something that he could do. I don't see him. It's not possible for a 10. I don't think he will be willing to run back. He's even more unwilling, I think, to track back and to run, I think, at this stage of his career. So I don't think he can play wing. So that where does that leave him? That leaves him the striker role or the door. And I was talking with Lincoln about it last week, and we were saying, a lot of managers when they come in, there's a big surprise person that gets the axe, to kind of show that they've got the authority or whatever. I'm telling you, I would not be shocked if Rashford was the one who got the axe in this new managerial setup. I know Nash will be mad at it and say I'm a Rashford hater or whatever, but it's got nothing to do with that. I just think systematically speaking, I don't know if he fits in with the system. And I think at this point in his career, if it was young Rashford, I could maybe be convinced that he could do that, the winger role, because he'd be willing to run. But at this stage of his career, it's quite clear that he wants to be in that left forward role, and that's where he wants to play. And he wants to be able to do it being kind of the MVP of the team and not have, duties to run back and track back and do stuff like that. So, yeah, I think some of the wingers will become 10s. I think Garnacho will become a winger. And then I think, I wouldn't be shocked to see Rashford go out the exit door because you're right. I can't. We've gone big on having wingers and this like attacking forwards, should I say, inside forward type things, not really wingers. And Amorim doesn't play that. So, yeah, man, it's going to be interesting.
What's going to happen to your fullbacks? Because the formation that he likes to play, it floods a lot of the central areas, right? Or kind of maybe the half spaces in between a winger and a central area, right? If you do end up playing Garnacho in a wing-back type position, that means there's no space for... I mean, I don't know, depending on where you want to play him. I'm assuming you want to play a right-footed winger on a right-footed wing-back position, I'm assuming. I don't know for sure, but I'd hope so. Then you ask, like, what happens to Delo? What happens to Mazraoui if he goes on the other side? Like, there's going to be a lot of questions, and I think this is where that the formation change is probably the biggest change outside of the manager and all of the other craziness that's going on. I feel like that formation change is going to really change a lot for the Man United team. And I really hope Amorim doesn't do a 10 arg and kind of bottle it and say, oh, you guys can't play my way. I'm going to have to figure out something else. I hope he just comes in and says, you know what, Rashford, you're off. Luke Shaw, see you later, mate. Garnacho, you're sitting on the bench. And he just does all of that, because I think that's probably what you need at this point to really get a style of play to occur. Because I honestly think that the reason why you're not unable to establish a style of play is because you've got too many like kind of golden child players where they can't play your style of play that you want them to play, but they're also too big to bench or too big to drop or too big to sell. So you end up having to play them, and then you can't play the way that you want to play because of that. And I think even Bruno could be a problematic for that one too, because depending on the 10 that Amorim wants to play, I don't know if people want a quarterback 10 that is just shooting bloody long balls left, right, and centre all the time. Because if you take that away from Bruno, he's not that good a dribbler of the ball. He's not like crazy, like across the floor through ball, like mad, like Odegaard or even Cole Palmer recently, or Foden. So I'm thinking, like, how is he even going to fit into that? Is it just going to be long shot seasons for him? Like, how does Bruno even fit into that 10 role? I'm assuming Amorim wants a bit more from his 10 than that, right?
No, I agree. I agree with nearly everything you said, except for that last point on Bruno. I'm not that worried about Bruno in this new system. I'm worried about Bruno generally because of his I just don't want him to do the hot potato stuff. I don't actually think he takes that many long shots anymore. I actually do think he's reduced that down all the way down. Like the last one I can remember him properly taking, and I mean long shots. I don't mean for example against Chelsea where he hammered it.
I was about to say where he skies a
well, that was in the box. Long shot. He should shoot that. He should
that was
shoot
even
that,
worse.
Right? He just fluffed it. I just mean the pot shots. I don't think he does that as much. The last one I can remember, and there'll be Man U fans out there or rival fans that have watched our games that will correct me because I'm probably wrong with this. But the one that sticks out, I remember him doing against City in the Community Shield, and he actually scored, and then it was offside or whatever. And that's the last long shot I remember him properly taking.
I've seen him take a couple late in the game where
desperation
ones.
Score. And
he ends up hitting closer to the corner flag than he does to the goal. But I'm not even talking more about the shots. I'm talking about the long balls. He plays a lot of long balls, almost constantly aerial, over the top through balls, and they don't. I'm going to say less than 30% of them actually come off.
Yeah,
it's kind of a KDB style of play sometimes, which is very risky. You kind of have to sacrifice a lot to allow that to occur.
Yeah, it's the hot potato. Is that hot potato stuff generally that I think he needs to be explicitly told, don't do that. And because the thing is with him, I do think he can play through balls, and I do think he can play the type of defense cutting passes and stuff like that. Like some of the players you mentioned, I actually think he did that for the first 18 months of his reign, and he's done it occasionally since. He's just for some reason gotten. I don't know why. Maybe people have given him too much reign, I think is the truth, if I'm honest. They've gone, given him more importance to the team, which gives you more, I guess, license to be creative and do things that you maybe would be told not to do when you're not the captain or you're not one of the leadership group. I think that freedom has created problems. And I think he needs to play like everyone. I always say this, like everyone, Bruno needs to be a cog in the machine. And he can be an important one because he has got creativity, he has got vision. He will set up a lot of chances for people. It's not like by chance or by accident that he's always at the top of the chance creation stats. It is because he's got some sort of vision. He's got talent to spot chances or spot movement. The problem is he sometimes at the moment, not sometimes, he's just doing it all the time. Like when he can see something as a 0.1 bloody XG opportunity, he still goes for it because he's been given the freedom to make those kind of decisions, or he's not being told not to do it after the game. And that's the problem. But that's not isolated to him. That's to everyone in the team. They need a clear structure. And I think you will see a better Bruno with a clear structure, or we'll find out if we'll see a better Bruno with a clear structure, because I do think he can fit in one of the 10 roles. When I was watching them play yesterday, who was it? Is it Goncalves or something like that? The number 8 for Sporting. He isn't like the quickest, most rapid player. He plays in one of the 10s, and he gets the ball and he just shifts it quickly to the other players. And that's the only thing I'm hoping is that Bruno can play in that role and rely on that kind of skill set. He's not like the Trincao one, because the Trincao one is the one that does give me a bit of, maybe Rashford could do that role in the 10, because he's not a conventional 10. If you look at how Trincao plays, he takes people on and tries to go by them and do byline cutbacks, which maybe Rashford could do. So, watching that game yesterday was quite useful, because before that I thought no chance Rashford has a chance in this. But maybe I can see where some of our current players can fit into that. But yeah, I'm willing to go with what the coach says. So if he gets rid of Bruno, I don't care.
Do you think Bruno keeps his captaincy?
I think he probably will, just in the interim. And then I think it will depend on who we sign and what movements we do in the summer. I think longer term, someone like a De Ligt or something like that would probably be a better captain. But I think he's just too recent through the door. Yeah, he's too new. But I like his character from what I've read and what I've watched and seen from him. He needs to tighten up his performances for sure. But in terms of his character and stuff like that, I like him, and I think he's well suited to be a captain. There's something about having your captain as a defender as well that I quite like. You can kind of see everything from the back, right? And you can give good feedback to some of your players ahead of you when you're seeing everything in front of you like that. But at the same time, we had Harry Maguire, who was the captain, and that didn't turn out.